let's get this week wrapped up. A Football Friday edition of Birds 365. You got your Mac and Mac guys, me, Jody McDonald, and my partner, John McMullen. How's your week been, McMullen?
Solid week. I enjoyed it. Little nice weather, little break, a couple cool days. I like that, Jody. I like waking up to a little brisk air in the morning as opposed to just miserable heat and humidity. So that's a positive.
See, now, I'm afraid that you already jinxed it, and if I add to the conversation, I'll only further jinx it. It has been a really good, and we are now officially into summer. I always think of summer as starting Memorial Day weekend. That's when summer starts for me.
But it doesn't,
It on the calendar, it doesn't, and this year, weather-wise, it absolutely hadn't, because you can have 95-degree days on Memorial Day weekend, even close to being the case this year, and we haven't really had a heat wave. I turned my air conditioning on for a day earlier this year, and it might still be on. I didn't turn it off, but it doesn't ever kick in because it hasn't been hot enough to kick in.
You have just brought up a problem in this house, Jody, because my wife always wants the air conditioner on. If she's cooking, if that oven's on, it was the most beautiful day yesterday. We had the stinking air conditioning on while she was cooking.
Have you not learned that you do whatever the wife says in that category?
Yeah. I mean, I have to. I'm sitting there in the corner freezing. It is unbelievable in this house. It's like a meat locker. I'm going to get whacked. I'm always looking around because they're just going to hang me like Goodfellas. It's a meat locker in here, Jody.
Well, I better that than overly hot. I'm kind of with your wife on this one, but my wife is like your wife, a little over the top with it. But I never turned it off, and my wife likes it cold in here like your wife does. So I'm assuming it never was turned off. It just doesn't kick on.
Kick on. Yeah.
If it doesn't get to 70 some odd degrees in a house, it's not going to kick on anyway. So I'm saving money on my electric bill, so you're not going to hear any complaints out of me. Yes, I know. We're doing Birds 365 all the way through July.
Well, this reminds me, though. We have to get a weather guy at some point. Weather girl, weather guy. So I got to put that in the Rolodex.
Okay.
For game days, weather can be an issue.
Oh, that's huge. Do you have a go-to person or app or whatever that when you're up in the morning and you got to know what it's going to be like for a 1 o'clock kickoff that you
I'm an AccuWeather app. I'm an AccuWeather app guy.
You're an app guy? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Our buddy has provided us a little topic of conversation. Yesterday, unbeknownst to us, it was going to be Chris Sims because he was going to ridiculously leave Jalen Hurts off his top 40. That's 40, folks. There's only 32 teams in the National Football League, but he went so far as to rank 40 quarterbacks in the NFL this upcoming season, and somehow Jalen Hurts didn't crack that top 40. Case Keenum did. You know what, John? To be 100% honest, and we went through the top guys, and we kind of got sidetracked talking other stuff toward the bottom end, and Case Keenum was the 40th and last quarterback ranked. I didn't know what team Case Keenum was on. He has been on so many teams over the course of his career that I had actually forgotten what team he was last with. I remembered him last as a member of the Washington football team, which I believe at the time were the Redskins, but are now the Washington football team.
And I moves around. Now he's Baker Mayfield's caddy.
I didn't know that. I actually had to look that up. I said, well, where the hell is Case Keenum? Because off the top of my head, and more power to him. He'll probably be in this league, and it may still be on Chris Sims' list 4 years from now when he's the backup quarterback for.
By the way, Jody, I think he's a good backup quarterback. I think he is. I have no problem with Case Keenum being the 40th best quarterback. It's the guys, some of the guys ahead of him. His best year was probably here. People in Philadelphia don't realize. I think he was 6th in MVP voting that year when the Eagles beat Minnesota in the championship.
Beat the Vikings. Oh, he had a real good year with the Vikings.
I had a tremendous year. Unbelievable year. And obviously, it imploded here. But even then, the Vikings kind of knew. You're coming off that year. His statistics were unbelievable. I have to look them up. And he was a free agent. And people are like, well, you got to sign him. The Vikings are like, nah, we're not going to sign him because they knew. Sometimes you catch lightning in a bottle, but there's
And who
There's
got sucked in,
limitations.
who got sucked into signing him?
At that time, where did he go? I don't even remember.
This one I do know.
I don't remember.
The quarterback-starved Denver Broncos
Oh yeah, okay.
signed him, and he, like many other quarterbacks,
He's been on so many teams.
Went to a position where quarterbacks' careers die, and that was in Denver for Case Keenum. But you're right. He had a phenomenal year with Minnesota. But when we're now several years removed from that, and I didn't even remember what team that he was on last year and is going to be on again this year, with the kind of luck that the Browns have because he showed up on Chris Sims' list, he'll probably have to play this year. Baker Mayfield will get hurt.
Well, there's always remember who the coach is in Cleveland, and remember where he came from. There's always some kind of interconnection because Kevin Stefanski was the quarterback's coach in Minnesota back when Case was with the Vikings having that great season. It's always about who you know.
Quick, as the world comes all the way around, story for that. Buddy of mine is a fellow degenerate horse racing player, and he's originally from Minnesota. So he texted me that he was going to Canterbury Downs.
Canterbury Downs.
Do you
know Paul Allen, by the way?
I know Paul Allen pretty well. That was in his text. He said PA on the call today, because he's friendly with Paul Allen as well. And he mentioned to me that the stakes race they were having in Canterbury Downs, it was either earlier this week or the end of last week, I don't remember which. The presenter of the trophy was going to be Kevin Stefanski. And I said, what the hell is a Cleveland Brown Philly guy doing at Canterbury Downs? And then I remembered he was a former Viking assistant, and he actually has a summer home that he kept even after he left Minnesota. So he goes back to Minnesota for the summer. He's probably freezing his you-know-what off because, as we just said, it hasn't been all that hot this summer.
Yeah. Paul Allen, by the way, what a phenomenal horse racing. I mean, you probably know, you definitely know better than me. I mean, that is difficult to do. And he is just unbelievable at it.
I tried it once. I know a couple of guys. Dave Johnson was race caller for the Meadowlands, Monmouth, Jersey, and for many a year. So he let me come up into his booth one day when we were at the track together, and I just saw the prepper. He said, "Do you want to try this?" I said, that would be a no. I have no desire to do what you do, Mr. Johnson. I can see how difficult it is with all your information and notes and the glasses he's got to wear. No, thank you. I'll just applaud when you're over and done with, but I don't want to learn and I don't want to try. But thank you for offering. All right, we've gotten off on a tangent to start the show. I started by saying Chris Sims is solid by putting his list of top 40 quarterbacks that somehow Jalen Hurts wasn't on. Well, our buddy Jimmy Kempski, who you said we're going to have on next week, he's doing a vacation thing this week, like a lot of guys we reached out to, John.
I don't know if he's on vacation. He said he had a busy week in the morning, so I don't know. You know, once you get Jimmy's got at least one kid I know as well. So once you get into the dad thing, sometimes things get busy in the morning.
Gotcha. But he did say he'd come on with us next week, and we're very much looking forward to that. But you and I noted on a show earlier this week that he had done his dumpster fire setup articles for the three competitive teams in the NFC East, the Giants, the Cowboys, and Washington football team. Oh, he did the 10 reasons why the Eagles will be a dumpster fire this season. And I guarantee you that someone is not going to get it. I confessed yesterday that the first time I ever read this, I don't remember, was Giants, Cowboys, Redskins. It didn't dawn on me, and I'm going, damn, this Kempski guy is negative. He's only pointing out the bad. He does realize that they have this guy as a running back, and their overall defense was one of the better ones. And I'm reading, I'm going, I don't get that. Then I go back up to the headline. Oh, that's dumpster fire. Okay, he's going to do this again. All right, now I missed out on the cynicism the first time and felt like an idiot, but that's okay. Not the first or last time that will be the case. And I truly like this one from a specific aspect. Not that, yes, he's pointing out the major issues and problems with the Philadelphia Eagles, but it gives the whole series balance. That, you want me to throw you-know-what against all of our chief rivals in the division? Oh, I can do that for you. I'll do a little research and point out where the shortcomings are of all these teams. But then he comes full circle again, and he points out the issues of the hometown team, which I think gives you a nice perspective on all of them. And that's one thing I will say about this year's version, and Jimmy's been doing this for years. It's not all that hard to do it.
The hardest part, I imagine, and we'll ask Jimmy next week, is cutting it down to 10. I mean, that's got to be the hardest part, because I'm sure he left some things out.
Right. I'll give you, for instance, and man, who did it? I didn't even see who wrote the article this week. You know, I'm a Peter King fanboy, and I think he's as good a football writer as there is, and has only been doing it for decades, as a matter of fact. And over the last several years, first with the Monday Morning Quarterback, now FMIA, Football Morning in America. He has his Monday column, which is so chock full of information and opinion and everything else. I think it's a must read for anybody who calls themselves an NFL fan. But enough of kissing Peter King's took us. He has a lot of things that, like the 10 things he knows, and then the 10 things that he thinks he knows. And under the 10 things, he'll have number 2, we'll have 10 things under that. So you can get everything into a column, even if you say you're going to reduce it to just 10 things. And Jimmy does just that today. Number 1, they wrecked the Super Bowl roster in record time. Ouch. The headline is painful, even without the details. That's painful. But then under that, he has like 5 main reasons. The whiff on Sidney Jones and Russell Douglas in 2017 necessitated the Darius Slay acquisition. Selection of J.J. Arcega-Whiteside ahead of better options. Ouch. That was 2 years ago. Now this past year, they did the same exact thing. Rager instead of Justin Jefferson. Traded up for Andre Dillard as an athletic talent. And, of course, they used a second-round pick on a quarterback. See, he went there, too. I still don't say that that's necessarily a bad move. And when Jalen Hurts works his way onto Chris Sims' list of the top 30 quarterbacks next year, then those who still
he better make the list in the top 30 next year. Even that wouldn't be good. I think we went through that list, and I was at 17 or 18 legitimate good starting quarterbacks. Can it get to 19? That's my goal with Jalen Hurts. Can you be the best of that sort of, whatever you want to call it, third or fourth tier? That's probably not going to be a really good NFL quarterback or an average NFL quarterback. Just the best of the other group. That's what I want.
See, I'll take that if there's another progressive step thereafter. You got to get your starting quarterback into the minimum top half of the league.
Oh, I agree. Eventually. I'm saying first year. That's what I'm
first year, if you can get into the bottom third of the quarterbacks in the National Football League, that would not be that bad. All right, of those, the Sidney Jones, Russell Douglas, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Jalen Rager, Andre Dillard, which one sticks out for you as the biggest blunder the Eagles have made in the last several years setting up 2021?
I would say 2. I hedge between 2. I don't bring up Metcalf because Metcalf was red flagged by the Eagles for a medical issue. So to me, I think that's real context. So I look at 3 and 4 in Jimmy's list. I think about Rager instead of Jefferson. Now the Eagles will claim they listened to the coaching staff. The coaching staff wanted that type of player. The scouting staff wanted Justin Jefferson. Okay, let's make better decisions, Howie Roseman. It's on you. You have to break that tie, pick the better player. And then 4, because of Andre Dillard, Jimmy's right. The Eagles at the time, they didn't do a lot of homework on Andre Dillard. The reason they didn't do a lot of homework on Andre Dillard is because they thought there was no way they would get him. He was supposed to be in the mix to be potential 10, maybe top 10, maybe worst case 15. He would be his floor as a draft choice. And all of a sudden he's there and they go, oh, we got a chance to get Andre Dillard. And they didn't do the homework. Athletically, nobody questions him from a trait standpoint, but there were some questions about his, how do we phrase it, Jody? Maybe love and ball, as Nick Sirianni would say. That's always one of the things. Do you love ball? You're going to fight through things. Do you have the mentality to play the NFL grind? I don't know that about Andre Dillard yet. He said all the right things this offseason, but the fact that the Eagles didn't do their homework, they knew they didn't do their homework, and at the last minute they said, "Oh, let's change direction." Can't do that. We've talked to a lot of GMs on this show. You got to have a plan, and you got to stick to it on draft night.
Right, and shame on them. I get it. That once you get past, what was the Eagles' scheduled pick that year? They were 20 what?
That's a good question. I'd have to look it up.
Oh, let's say they were 26, 27, just to put the number. I get it that if you have guys up top that you really do believe that you're going to have no shot at getting, once you get down to number 26 on your draft board, you have to do major work on all these guys because there's the possibility that you can draft them, be it in the first round or the second round, wherever else. All other guys are in play. The only ones you're not going to get a shot at are those handful of players at the top of the draft who will, in your estimation, be gone by the time you pick at number 26. Well, you're doing all the work on all of those other guys. Why the hell wouldn't you do the work on every available player in the draft? That gives you the possibility to, on draft day, say, yeah, even if you want to take the top 10 and go, all right, we're not getting into it. We just don't have the draft capital. We can't get into the top 10. So here are the 10 guys. But if you do that, and then you come up with your board, and somehow miraculously number 8 drops down to an area where you can actually trade up and acquire the player, well, here's where it's going to come back and bite you in the butt. If you had him in 8, and he's dropping down to number 19, and you're in the 20s, well, why the hell you're scouting that bad that you had him at 8 and he's dropping down to 19? Well, maybe you missed something.
Yeah, it's a fair point to say why is he balling? So here it was. They're the 25th pick. They moved up, and 25 turned out to be Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, who's been, but they could have used a player like that, even though he hasn't been spectacular. With the Ravens. Montez Sweat, by the way, 126. He's a tremendous player.
Hollywood Brown's been better with the Ravens than Jalen Reagor was in his first year.
Yeah, well, exactly. And Montez Sweat is a star, despite the vaccination concerns. So they moved up to 22, and now as I look at it, the issue was Houston was at 23. They had to get ahead of Houston. Everybody knew at the time Houston was going to take a left tackle if one was on the board, and that's why they made the move. And sure enough, the Texans picked Titus Howard. They really reached for Titus Howard at 23, so they kind of got screwed by the Eagles, or not, because Andre Dillard hasn't done anything, but at the time, it was looked at that way. But you're right, Jody. I mean, Black's got to come up and say, well, why is this guy falling? Yeah. And Jeff Stoutland has admitted, this is rare, but Jeff Stoutland tells the truth. He has admitted, we didn't think we could get him, so we didn't do. Now, I'm not saying they didn't do any homework. They just didn't do as much as they would typically do for a player that they thought was going to be in that position.
And here's the real deal. Andre Dillard this year is going to live up to his draft status. Yeah, he is going to jump in as the starting tackle of the Philadelphia Eagles. And if that is the case, and he plays the position well enough, and between you and I, can he play it any worse than Jason Peters played it last year while he was there? I don't think so. And sorry, Jason Peters. I know you're an all-time great. I know you're going to the Hall of Fame. I know you're going to be in the Eagles Ring of Honor. There was the 2021 season that you came back. We're going to play guard, move back over to left tackle, and you just didn't have it anymore. And it was probably a bad idea for you to even come back this past season. If that's blasphemous, I apologize, but it's just.
Are we going to retire Jason Peters' number, by the way, Jody?
Oh, we're going back down to retired number conversation. Yeah. Again, my opinion, the answer is no. Not because he doesn't deserve it, because I wouldn't retire any more numbers.
Who deserves it more, though? Jason Peters or Zach Ertz? I think JP does.
Probably Peters because of longevity, because he did it for that much longer than Zach Ertz did. But that's just, again, and they're both going into the Ring of Honor, which is good, and I think they both deserve that. And I love the Ring of Honor. I just say you got to stay away from the numbers because you only got so many numbers. But we had that conversation.
You know what I say, Jody? And I know we got to go to break, but I say there's only one team that won a Super Bowl in this franchise history. You got to retire somebody's number from that team. You got to. Now, it might be 10 years down the road, but whatever. You have to. This is the only team in franchise history to get it done. Somebody's got to be honored.
See, but then if that's the case, I might say Ertz over Peters because in that given year, and I know Peters was really good, but Zach Ertz to me was a bigger contributor to that team becoming the Super Bowl champion. Yeah. So are you going to look just at that 1 year or their entire Eagle career?
No, you got to go entire career, but you're also going to play up that team. I mean, that team's going to turn into a legendary team. There's going to be the 10th year anniversary, the 25th year, where you bring people back just because it's the only Super Bowl. Now, hopefully they'll get another one at some point, but it's not coming soon. So
and maybe they should retire Corey Clement's number too, because he was a pretty big contributor.
Fair point. By the way, that was not a catch. That's right. Eagles fans crazy.
Oh man, so, did you get killed for suggesting that as well?
Oh, I got murdered. It wasn't. By the way they refereed the entire season, it wasn't a catch.
Not even close.
No.
Sorry, I said the same thing you did. All right, we're gonna get our first guest up here. Dave Weinberg, former columnist for the Post AC, and now doing blogging work and columns for 97.3 ESPN. Down the shore. Dave Weinberg going to join us next. Mac and Mac guys on a Football Friday.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
but as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Champions on three. 1, 2, 3. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
This is the Mac and Mac guys on Birds 365, a Football Friday edition. Thanks for checking us out, Birds fans. Looking forward to the rest of this show and all week next. It's summertime. So when it becomes summertime, what do you got to do, Johnny Mac? Go down the shore, right? If it's summertime, you should be heading down the shore. So we're going to do just that. Dave Weinberg has been covering the Eagles for years for various outlets down the shore, good enough to hop aboard with us. Dave, Jody Mac, and Johnny Mac here. How you doing today?
Doing well, guys. I was hoping it would be a do me a favor Friday. I guess not, huh?
You're already doing us a favor by hopping on the show. Thank you very much.
No, I meant
it's good to see it, by the way.
Oh, you too, Johnny. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Yeah,
you guys are cutting into my beach time here, so let's go.
Yeah, we know. You're living my best life. Dave's down in Cape May, obviously, so I assume you're going to the beach, although it looks a little overcast down there by where you are. I don't know.
Yeah, a little bit, but the sun's supposed to come out.
Yeah, it's going to come out. It'll burn off. No golf today, though? No golf?
Maybe. I'm not sure yet. It's between golf and stand-up paddleboarding. That's my life now, so I'm
nice. That is nice. But you still keep an eye on the Eagles. Dave covered the Eagles for a really long time. Columnist as well for the Press of Atlantic City. Now still doing some stuff for one of my old stomping grounds, ESPN South Jersey. First off, I got to ask you, because I should have had you on the show earlier. I apologize for that.
I
want to get your thoughts on Nick Sirianni from afar. What you think of a young coach with a young coaching staff and this sort of transition for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Honestly, I have my doubts. He's very enthusiastic. I got to give him credit for that. But I just have this nagging, gnawing feeling that he's in over his head. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he turns out to be, the next Doug Peterson, brings him to a Super Bowl. But I got to reserve judgment because right now I'm not all that impressed.
But along those lines, did you feel the same way about Dougie P when he took over the Eagles?
Well, he wasn't as enthusiastic, but yeah,
he should have been.
Yeah, that's true. I kind of did, only because he hadn't gotten like Nick, he hadn't gotten any other interviews for head coaching jobs. But the difference being, Doug played the game for a long time. Doug was a coordinator for a long time. I just kind of felt he was a little bit better prepared. I mean, certainly not that Nick isn't. I'm sure he's very well qualified, but I'm just a little confused. I was just confused by the hire when they made it, but we'll wait and see. Hopefully it'll work out.
But I think the biggest difference too is, Dave, Jim Schwartz came along with Doug Peterson, and Jim Schwartz was obviously a veteran coach who had been a head coach, and he had that sounding board. I look at Nick's staff and I say, where's that sounding board? Where's that veteran guy? Where's that guy who's going to tell him this is coming? This is going to be a problem. How do you get over this hump? Does that even exist?
That's very true. Yeah, I don't think it does. You're right. Jim was an excellent source of information.
Dave dropped off. That's that's the joy of being on the extreme southern tip of New Jersey. Who knows do they have Wi-Fi down in Cape May? No, we do, because we had Colin Thompson on, so he's a Cape May guy as well. But true. Streaming is, and Dave's already back. So
sorry about that. My fault, I guess. But yeah, Jim. You're right. Jim had an excellent. He was that person that Doug could lean on, and like you said, kind of lead the way for him a little bit. Having been a head coach himself at one point, and Nick has no safe net here. The rest of his staff is in the same boat as him, so we'll have to wait and see if they sink or swim.
We're here on Birds 365 for the Eagle fan. So I'm going to ask you a question from an Eagle fan perspective. While Nick Sirianni is, yes, a unproven commodity taking over as their head coach, Doug Peterson had never coached before in the league. Chip Kelly had never coached before in the league. Andy Reid, we could absolutely forget that when he was hired, had never coached before in the league. That has been the entire Jeffrey Lurie tenure as owner of the Eagles. He's never hired a coach who had previous head coaching experience. So we've been down that road, different curves in that road before. All right, we lost Dave again, so I'll put this to you, Johnny Mac. And when Dave rejoins us, we'll get his take on it. The last time the Eagles started a year with a guy who had never been a starting quarterback before. And I know that Jalen Hurts, I'm talking about at the start of his season. Jalen Hurts came in and started some games for the Eagles last year, but he's never been the opening day starting quarterback. It's been a while since Eagles did that, because remember, and I mean enjoying the offseason leading up to that season, we didn't know Carson Wentz was going to be the starting quarterback of the Eagles till 10 days before the season started, because they ended up trading Sam Bradford, who we all believed was going to be the starting quarterback. Lo and behold, here's Carson Wentz. So we didn't have that offseason to prepare in our minds as an Eagle fan that, all right, we're going with a new guy. This is a wet behind the ears guy, and we're going to go by the seat of our pants QB. Yeah, there's nervousness about it, but shouldn't there be excitement about it too?
Oh, you're talking to me. I'm back now. Okay.
Yeah, I got
we're talking to you.
We know you're back.
Yeah.
Must be the Cape May bubble, I guess. I don't know. Just to go back to your coaching point real quick, you're right. I mean, even you go back when Jeffrey first took over the team and he hired Ray Rhodes as his first replacement, and Ray had never been a head coach anywhere either. And Jeff just likes to be. I guess he's always enjoyed thinking outside the box, making that choice that maybe some other people didn't really think.
Wow, we're having a lot of
We're having trouble with Dave.
It is the Cape May bubble. But Jody, I agree. But here's the thing. Is it because what Dave just said, is it because Jeffrey likes being innovative, or is it because Jeffrey likes to be able to be in control? And you can do that a little bit. In other words, you can't bring in Bill Parcells late in his career, Bill Belichick. A coach with cachet is what I'm trying to say. You can't bring in that type of coach and say, do this, do that. 4th and 1, have TJ Paganetti on in your ear and do what he says. So is it Jeffrey wants to be innovative, or Jeffrey wants control over a young coach that doesn't have a lot of power? That I think is the biggest question. Dave, did you get that?
I did. Yeah, you're right there, I think. I think Jeffrey, like I said, Jeffrey enjoys thinking outside the box, but he likes to have control too, as you've seen by the way the Doug Peterson era ended. I personally think that's going to wind up being the biggest mistake that Lurie ever made. I still don't understand why he isn't still the coach. But yeah, he was not going to bring in a veteran guy, like you said. He's not going to bring someone who is already set in his ways. Jeffrey likes to be in control of things, and the hires that he's made has reflected that.
Dave, I don't know if you heard us previously here on Birds 365. My take on Doug Peterson is to his job status. I was okay with the Eagles moving on from Doug Peterson because I think he did a really lousy job with last year's team. And when you have a season, even if you're just a couple of years removed from the Super Bowl, and you are embarrassingly bad, and the Eagles were embarrassingly bad last year, you can lose your job. Here was my issue. Yeah, and the same could be said for general manager. Howie Roseman could have been fired last year too. And I thought either you keep both and you go to the well with them one more time, or you fire both and say, clean, Bruins coming in, sweeping clean. We're going to go turn a completely new page. The fact that Jeff Lurie chose to keep one and fire the other, I thought was just unfair.
I got you. Yeah, you're right there. It was Howie.
We're having serious issues with Dave. He continues to drop off. But I didn't get your take on the excitement level of Eagle fans this season. Did Kevin Cobb ever come in as the starting quarterback of a season in an off season where we thought Kevin Cobb was going to be the starting QB? I don't know if that was ever the case with the Eagles, was it?
Yeah. The first Kevin Cobb year, Dave, if we can get Dave back one more time, well, he would know better. He was here at the time. I'm pretty sure that first year, and then he got hurt with the concussion. That's one of the things, I have tremendous respect for Andy Reid when it comes to quarterbacks. And I remember vaguely at the time, I was not here. I was remembering, how could you think Kevin Cobb is better than Michael Vick? And he did. Now, there's a lot of other things that can play into that. Obviously, this is the Michael Vick coming off the obviously downtime because he was in federal prison. So that's an issue. So all of that stuff could have played into it. But yeah, the Eagles were planning on going with Kevin Cobb at one point. And that was always one of the biggest Andy Reid head scratchers to me ever. Didn't see what he saw in that particular play.
But the reason I bring it up is I think there is a reason for it. If you're an Eagle fan and you're coming off 4-11-1, and last year was really painful for Eagle fans, when you are only a couple of years removed from the Super Bowl and you put up a 4-11-1 season, you're grasping at straws for anything to get excited by. We're still several weeks, several months away from the start of the season, so you're looking for something to get your Eagle juices flowing. And I think the fact that Jalen Hurts is going to be an unknown starting quarterback is something that if you're an Eagle fan, yes, you admittedly relate to the fact that you're doing so through Eagle-colored glasses, but he's somebody that you can at least projectedly think that, wow, we may have something different here. This may be something that we can build on. Am I just looking too much through those Eagle-colored glasses there, Dave? Or do you think there is reason for excitement for Jalen Hurts taking over as the new quarterback of this team?
No, absolutely. It's reason for excitement. I'm a big believer. I think Jalen's going to have a very good year here. People tend to forget that there was no training camp. There was no preseason. There was no he was sitting on the bench for the first 3 quarters of the year before he finally got his opportunity. And he admittedly, he did struggle, but when you
we once again lost Dave. This stuff like this happens from time to time.
Streaming show. Oh well. Well, we're gonna have to move on. But I thank Dave for trying. He's still gonna live his best life because he's still gonna be on the beach, Jody, as we struggle with Wi-Fi. But it happens. But getting back to Jalen Hurts, yeah, you mentioned the Kevin Cobb point. It was 2010 after the Eagles traded Donovan McNabb. That was the plan. That was the plan, that Kevin Cobb was going to be the starting quarterback of this team. And I didn't get it at the time. I do remember that. And obviously it didn't work out. Now, some will point to injuries. Some will point to the concussion. But I just didn't think he was going to be a big-time quarterback. So, I mean, that speaks to the difficulties of evaluating the position. I mean, this is Andy Reid. This is one of the best of all time evaluating the quarterback position. Nobody's 100%. Now, the key is you can't be Ben Simmons at the free throw line. You can't be 34%. You gotta have more hits than misses. Andy Reid has certainly had that over his career. And we'll see the Eagles. We talk it from a national perspective all the time, Jody. We talk about the fact that not much is expected from the Eagles. And why is that the case? And the reason that's the case is because of the head coach that we talked about with Dave and the quarterback, the young quarterback. And people don't believe in him. There's 2 ways that can go. You pointed it out. It's already worked with guys like Andy Reid and Doug Peterson. And even to a certain extent, Chip Kelly was a success early in his career. I think people conveniently forget that at times. He doesn't have to be a bad coach. And Jalen Hurts doesn't have to be a bad quarterback. He could play well. He could be better than people expect. He could be better than Chris Sims expects. I think he will be. I think the key is how much better. And that's the whole thing. I think Jalen Hurts is so interesting, and I've said this before. Typically with young quarterbacks, we're always concerned about the other stuff, the work ethic, the intangibles. Is he going to do what it needs to do off the field? That kind of stuff. I have no concerns over that kind of stuff with Jalen Hurts, Jody. None. Zero. I know he's going to do the work. I know he's going to put in the time. I know he's a leader. The one that I wrote on Sports Illustrated yesterday, Jody, Xavier Mckinney. Now, granted, is another Alabama guy. They have a relationship. They have a history. He spoke very, very highly. He was on Patrick Peterson has a podcast, the old Cardinals corner. Now he's on Minnesota. He was on Patrick's podcast. and he just raved about Jalen Hurts from a leadership standpoint. And everybody, to a man, it's been 100%. It's been Steve Nash at the free throw line, not Ben Simmons at the free throw line. That from that perspective. So I can't tell you how much of a positive I think that is, because even though you can't put a number, and I'm going to get the analytics people mad at me like Bill Belichick, you can't put a number on that. So people dismiss it. They can't judge it, so they dismiss it. It's important. And you just saw it unravel with Carson Wentz. It's important. Just because that's why they call it intangibles, because it's not tangible. And it's very, very important whether you can put a number on it or you can't.
I'll give you a tangible thing about Jalen Hurts that probably isn't the first thing that comes to mind. Something intangible like leadership qualities come to mind before something like this. They got him on the cheap. And yes, this year they're not going to take advantage of it. They can't, because it's costing them an arm and a leg under the cap with dead cap money to just move away from Carson Wentz. But as of next year, if Jalen Hurts is meritorious of being their starting quarterback, if, as you say, he plays into that low teens, high 20s in his first year, best quarterback in the NFL, with the arrow pointing up where you believe he's only going to get higher the year after, now you've got a quarterback who's playing to that range in the NFL, and basically you're paying him NFL peanuts, which is a good thing. Because if you can spend that little at your quarterback position, which most teams in the National Football League aren't even close to, they're spending a major chunk of their salary cap funds on their quarterback just to be good enough. Well, then that means you can do that much more and spend that much more and give your general manager the leeway to do that much more at all other positions. So that is an added positive on Jalen Hurts being able to win this quarterback position, because if he does it and he just continues to escalate his game, you got him on the cheap for the next several years.
Now, the problem with that is, and you're right, but there is one concern when you have, and this is when we always talk about with first round picks and why you see teams trade up to 32 a lot. That's what happened during the Lamar Jackson year. The Eagles were at 32. The Ravens traded up to get Lamar Jackson. Why'd they do that? To get the 5th-year option on the quarterback. So you start talking about Jalen Hurts. This is a second year. He's a second-round pick, so he has a 4-year deal. So you do have him under control. But guess what? If he plays well, you got to start talking about an extension next season, Jody. So it's real quick, and it's moving real quick. And everything in the NFL, let's be honest, everything is about decisions and making the right decisions, stacking good decisions. Nobody's right all the time, but the more the more things you get right, the better, obviously. In the case of Jalen Hurts, it'll be cost effective. And that's one of the reasons they could take on the dead money for Carson Wentz, by the way. So quickly and try to take that gulp of medicine, and they'll be able to move on from that. So from the finances standpoint, I think that's the biggest positive, the fact that they could, because they had Jalen Hurts, they could take that gulp of medicine, so to speak, with Wentz and move on quickly. But again, it's about decisions, Jody. If we're here next year at this time and Carson Wentz plays lights out for the Indianapolis Colts, did you make the right decision? If Jalen Hurts plays poorly, well, it's not going to be spun as the right decision. Certainly not. It probably was the right decision either way. But you know how this works. It works with hindsight. You know, who plays well, who doesn't play well. So bottom line is Jalen Hurts has to play well. And then, by the way, I talk about you have to be in that 19 range, 20 range, 21. That's what I'm hoping for. And you point out, also add the caveat of with the signs pointing upward. In other words, there's more potential there. In a lot of ways, though, when I think about it, Jody, that creates a quandary as well, because you got to make that split-second decision. Does this guy, is he better? Because you have all that draft capital. You have all that financial aspect. whether it's Deshaun Watson, we've said the names 100 times. You got to make that decision at that point. Do we go for the guy that we know is going to be a star, or do we continue to develop the young kid? And you can say cost effective, but again, that will evaporate very, very quickly.
Well, the Eagles might have to consider hiring Sam Hinkie, who knew how not only to accrue draft asset, but continue to push them off. Take a pick and trade for a future pick if they're not sure at the end of this year as to whether Jalen Hurts is the guy. Want to give him another year to prove it or not. They're going to want to push all those draft picks for another year so that they can potentially get their next quarterback somewhere else down the road. I do want to follow up on one point that you made, though. Carson Wentz and how he plays this year in Indianapolis. Could it work itself out and prove to have been a mistake? Certainly what Jalen Hurts did will be a big part of determining that. But Carson himself, who you just said, where you'd like to see Jalen Hurts this year in that 19-20 range with the capability of going even higher thereafter. Where does Carson Wentz have to fall in the level of play this year for us to be either 100% sure, oh, God, did we screw this up? Look how good Carson Wentz is. Or, well, Carson was better than Jalen Hurts, so maybe if we kept him. Or, damn, did we do the right thing with moving on from Carson Wentz? Carson did us a favor by forcing himself out of town. How would you break down that range and ranking of Carson Wentz's year from the fall into those different levels of evaluation that Eagle fans will be making when the season's over and done with?
Well, I think for me, it's a little bit different. For me, it would be sort of 2018, 2019 Carson Wentz, if he plays in that range. But I think outside, I think to the average fan, I think he would have to be even better than that for them to think it was a mistake.
Same with me. I'm one of those.
I thought Carson was settling in as a guy, you know, if we're going to use numbers, if we're going to use where he is in the hierarchy.
Right.
I thought he was a guy settling in as maybe the 12th or 13th or 14th best quarterback in football. And on a good year, maybe he'd get in the bottom of the top 10. That's where I thought he was settling in as a player. And I think that would have been good enough. Now, I don't think fans will think that way. And obviously you include yourself.
Yeah.
Because of some of the off the field stuff, because of some of the reputation stuff. And that's understandable. But, you know, if you got a guy in that 12, 13 range, you could do a lot worse. And we're going to see that probably. And we have seen it.
And you can tell me if I'm wrong about this. And again, it's just evaluating this from both a talk show host and a fan standpoint, melding the two. He was the second pick in the draft. Second. Not second round like Jalen Hurts. He was the number 2 overall pick. He had set the bar for 3/4 of his season at not top 10, not top 5, top 3 quarterback in the league. Maybe MVP, which usually means you're the best quarterback in that given year. So Carson Wentz has kind of raised the bar for me. Whereas in the good year, he could crack the top 10, would be good enough. But usually he's a guy who's outside the top 10, 12, 13 range. Not good enough. When you've already done what Carson Wentz has done, one of which he can't control, being the second pick in the draft, one of which he did put on the board MVP-like numbers in 2017. And, oh, by the way, cashed the quarterback contract ticket and got paid as one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the National Football League. When you got those three things working for you, I'm sorry, Johnny Mac, you're grading too easily on him. That if he settles in at number 12 but can go a little bit higher, no, that doesn't cut it for a guy like me.
Well, I think more than a grade, it's the context. I talk about the injury all the time. I talked about it with Joe Burrow. I mean, to me, the demarcation line is pre-ACL, LCL, post-ACL, LCL. So, yeah, before that, I would have agreed with you. After that, I realized it wasn't the same guy physically, so you're going to have a little bit more limitations. Never thought it would get as bad as it did last year. Again, I thought he was settling in that 12, 13, 14 category and had a little bit of upside depending on the supporting cast from there. But it's interesting you bring up, because we talk about pedigree all the time. It works both ways. You're going to get the benefit of the doubt, but more expectations as well. And I look at the New York Giants up the turnpike. I've said this since the draft. I think Kadarius Toney is going to be a failure because of the expectations. I think Azeez Ojulari is going to be considered a really good draft pick because he got taken in the second round. I think if you flip that and Ojulari gets taken in the first round, Toney gets taken in the second round, completely changes. People say, oh, Ojulari's a pretty good player, but he's a first-round pick. That's expected. And Toney could be the manufactured touch guy, and they'd say, oh, that's pretty good. You get a contributor for a second-round pick. The whole landscape changes with that first-round tag. Jalen Reagor's going through it here. The whole landscape changes, Jody, and it works good for players like Andre Dillard, who's going to get another chance, but it also works bad because the expectations are generally through the roof. And when you're the second overall pick, they are through that roof.
Something you said really started me thinking, and that's exactly why we do this, right? Is to get Birds fans thinking, and good for you, Johnny Mac. The evaluation post-injury and pre-injury can absolutely be different. And yes, we've seen Carson Wentz pre and post, and there is a significant difference. How much is because of the injury? Only Carson Wentz knows for sure, but we can draw our own conclusions. Let me ask about the Eagle conclusion. Do you think that factored in when they made the decision? At some point they said during this offseason, yeah, we got to move on here. This, as much as we may have loved Carson and moved up to get him and gave him the contract and gave him the support, we need now to move on. A big part of it was, of course, Carson was demanding it and was being obnoxious about it, even though he didn't do it in public, behind closed doors, on the phone, to his agent. He doesn't want to be there anymore. You got to do what you can, get him out of town. That's more of the driving force. But could part of it have been that the Eagles looked at it like Johnny Mac looked at it? That, well, we keep referring back to 2017, but that was a pre-major knee injury, Carson Wentz, in 2017. When we're looking at what Carson Wentz will do in 2021, 22, 23, 24, oh, that's a post-injury Carson Wentz. And our expectations have dropped down that much for us to say, well, why are we paying him the kind of money that we're paying him? We gave him the money hoping that the injury wasn't as big a deal. Now we see that it may very well be a bigger deal. Yeah, we just need to go in a different direction at quarterback. How much of that do you think factored into Howie Roseman at all in the decision that they made to move on from Carson Wentz?
I think it factored in. How much, I can't tell you. They obviously signed him to the big deal, so it wasn't that big of a concern for them. I do think they already adjusted their expectations when they signed him to that deal. I think a lot of people look at that deal and say, oh, my God, how much money? It was the most guaranteed money in NFL history at the time. You know how this works, Jody. That got usurped almost immediately. Right. Now it looks like a cost-effective deal if it's a decent quarterback. That's how quickly it moves. The Eagles know that. That's the strength of Howie Roseman. So we got a team-friendly deal done. People don't understand that deal was very team-friendly. So they believe they got a bit of a discount. So I think they knew the expectations changed a little bit pre-injury, post-injury. I think they knew the ceiling wasn't quite as high, but they didn't know it was going to go the way it went by no stretch of the imagination. Then when it did, yeah, I'm sure they factored in. It's pretty clear this guy's not the same guy physically. And by the way, to me, the biggest injury by far is the ACL and the LCL, because you also have documented history for other players having the same injury, having the same type of decline. But you also have the stress fracture in the back. You also have the concussion as well. So I'm sure it played into it. How much did it play into it? You know, if we're going to put percentage on it, I would say probably 10, 50, very low. I wouldn't say 50, 60%, but I'm sure it played into it.
He's Johnny McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are your Mac and Mac guys here on Birds 365. We'll come back, continue to talk about the Eagles, but got a good guest coming up a little bit later. We're hoping that Clark Judge is not attempting to do it from outside like Dave Weinberg did when his Wi-Fi just kept dropping and dropping and dropping and dropping. Clark Judge from Talk of Fame. He's got a podcast as well. He's an NFL writer, has been from years, and is a Hall of Fame voter. John and I have touched on the Hall of Fame with our buddy Paul Domowitch stepping down from the Daily News this week. We got off on a little bit of a Hall of Fame tangent. I think we'll do some more of that with Clark Judge from the Talk of Fame Network and also a NFL Hall of Fame voter. He's going to join us coming up about 25 minutes from now. But don't you even think about going away from Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you. Champions on three. 1, 2, 3. Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Hey, Football Friday here on Birds 365. I'm McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald, Mac guys on the JAKIB YouTube channel. Thanks for jumping aboard. Hopefully you have a great weekend, and we'll have another summer week of football to talk about next week as we are making our way toward the 2021 season. We touched on this at the top of the show before we attempted to punch Dave Weinberg up, but the computer gods gave us some hurdles to get over today. We were talking about Jimmy Kempski's article in phillyboys.com, why the Eagles are going to be a dumpster fire this upcoming season. And he did make a really good point, which I know the optimism, the glass half full Eagle fans don't want to deal with, don't want to look at Harry Roseman and what he has done since the Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017. We pointed out some of his draft pick mistakes. The acquisitions of free agents have not been top drawer necessarily either since 2017. Let me throw you a couple all-time forgettable Eagle names that have gone through this organization just within the last couple of years. All right, somebody back in the 80s, you could certainly forget, but I'm talking about guys who were only here a couple of seasons ago. How was the Golden Tate era?
Well, it was better than a lot of these guys that Jimmy said. At least he caught the winning touchdown in the double doink game. And by the way, the interesting story about that, he ran the wrong route, but it worked. He couldn't hear the play call. He ran the wrong route, so it turned out to be a little bit of sandlot football. But yeah, I mean, Golden Tate, it was interesting at the time. Nelson Aguilar wasn't playing well. The Eagles needed a slot receiver, but there was some redundancy there. And I remember asking Howie Roseman when he made the trade, well, does this mean Nelson's got to play outside? Because he was really bad at playing outside. Golden Tate wasn't the strength of his game. Bottom line, though, he was a really good player for a long time in Detroit, and he just kind of lost. That happens in the NFL, and he just wasn't the same guy. Wasn't the same guy in New York as well with the Giants. You know, they made a mistake.
And if they hadn't given up a third-round pick, I would go, okay, well, you took a swing and you missed. Golden Tate, like John McMullen correctly states, not the same player was with the Lions. He was very good with the Lions. Did you see the article this week that Golden Tate, who's still a free agent, who's still sitting out there, in other words, a whole bunch of people agree with Johnny Mack that he's just not the same player he used to be. We're now almost into July, and he hasn't gotten a nibble on the free agent market. He said, wouldn't mind rejoining Matthew Stafford, reliving the golden days of the Lion connection between he and Stafford out in the NFC West.
He wouldn't mind getting signed anywhere, to be honest. Golden Tate. By the way, that's the maddest little inside story for you. The angriest Nelson Aguilar ever got at me was when I had written that Golden Tate should be playing in the slot. And by the way, I was wrong, Nelson, if you're listening. He shouldn't have been. You should have been playing. Nelson did not like that.
Really?
He did not like that.
He gave you the stink eye at some point in the locker room?
He gave me more than the stink eye. He gave me more than the stink eye.
Oh, okay. He verbalized his disappointment with you.
He got to the point where some people had to step in between.
Really? Almost got physical, huh?
No, not from my perspective. Not from my perspective. What am I going to do to an NFL player? But he was not happy with it, which is interesting. And I said, Nelson, I just said, why do you care? It's my opinion. That's what we have to do. And to his credit, by the way, he apologized quickly afterwards.
Okay, that's good.
Probably having a bad day.
Golden Tate here in Philadelphia, gone, didn't do much while he was here. Oh, by the way, he wouldn't mind joining Matthew Stafford. Also said, wouldn't mind hooking up with Carson Wentz in Indianapolis. I think the point you made earlier was he's looking for a job anywhere. Anybody gives him a decent offer, he's going to love playing with that quarterback. Mark it down for sure at this stage of Golden Tate's career. But they also brought in Mike Wallace that year. And I remember saying a pretty good shot.
I thought it was a good fit.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good fit at the time.
When they signed him, I said, this isn't a bad sign. Howie Roseman was wrong. John McMullen was wrong. Jody McDonald was wrong. Mike Wallace brought nothing to the table.
Well, he also got hurt right away.
Right. He couldn't get on the field. So that's part of what you got to do as a general manager. And it's not necessarily fair. And you could have all best intentions and have it planned out and slotted out perfectly in your head. If the guy can't get on the field, guess what? You're wrong. It sucks if you're a general manager, but you're wrong if the guy can't get on the field. Corey Nelson and Paul Warlow as linebackers. Isn't Warlow on wrestling these days? Do I have that wrong?
That's Wardlow. Wardlow on AEW. It's interesting. Paul Warlow, our buddy Martin Frank, he's a Delaware guy, so he was really excited because Paul Warlow was going to be a part of this team. First play of OTAs. First play, Jody. Non-contact. Boom. ACL. Down. Gone. So that was the thing. Corey Nelson, they've had a really, really difficult time with these sort of cost-effective deals at linebacker. LJ Ford came. Then it was who was it in 2020? Did Jimmy put that up? The Chargers guy. I can't. Jatavis Brown.
Jatavis Brown.
He just retired. Jatavis Brown. I mean, they don't value the linebacker position. We sit there, and that's one of the things we always talk about. You know, Eric Wilson is like, that's a big splashy free agent signing for the Eagles at linebacker. I mean, at some point, you would think they would look around the league and see the Devin Whites of the world, what he did for the Buccaneers and Levante David as well, en route to the Super Bowl. And then I think Jonathan Gannon comes from Indianapolis, where they have Darius Leonard. Before that, he was in Minnesota, where they had Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr. How about trying to get a real linebacker, Howie, if you're listening? Just once. Just try it. Just try it.
Yeah, it hasn't happened this offseason unless some of the later round draft picks they took who were cornerbacks and or defensive line that they're trying to convert to linebacker. That's your best hope at right now, finding that diamond in the rough that you're referring to that becomes a staple and a borderline star at the linebacker
but here's the problem, Jody. I think White was a top, certainly top 10. He might have been top 5 pick. Barr was a top 10 pick. Leonard and Kendricks were both second-round picks. I mean, they're premium picks. So how about trying to get a linebacker is all I'm trying to say at some point.
Yeah, investing in the position with draft capital. Yeah, they haven't done it forever, and good luck thinking how he's going to do it this upcoming year. We shall see. But other acquisitions, let me ask you about this guy, because talk about two guys that I got wrong. One I was half-heartedly excited about. One I was pretty damn excited about. When they signed Michael Bennett, the former Seahawk, and when they brought in Haloti Ngata, who, yes, I understood was at the tail end of his career, but I thought was still a big enough, strong enough guy who could be your run-stopping middle of the defensive line, could play with Fletcher Cox kind of DT. I was more excited about Bennett, who I thought they got on a cap-friendly deal, and not limited snaps, be part of the rotation guys. Really, neither one of those guys worked out here in Philadelphia, did they? 2020 hindsight.
Well, Nada certainly different. He was aging in his career, and he was only brought in to be a sort of two-down run stuffer. Michael actually played pretty well. I think people forget. I mean, his issue, Michael's out there, man. He is an interesting guy.
Right, but that's part of it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, John. I thought that the Eagle coaching staff, again, my fault, Howie Roseman's fault, I thought that they could harness him and keep him somewhat focused enough that he wasn't going to become an issue. Yeah, he actually made some plays in the Eagle uniform, but as you said, he was out there. When he's a free agent, you can sit down, you can talk to him, you can try and get inside a guy's head. You've got your league sources, maybe somebody from Seattle, and you try and find this stuff out. They never got him on the straight now. Now, it might have been impossible. Maybe that couldn't have been done, but when you sign the guy, you have to know whether that can be done or not. And I incorrectly thought that the Eagles might be able to pull something like that off. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody. He went to the Patriots after that, went to the Cowboys. Nobody could pull it off with Michael. But he's just, it's interesting. I'll give you another locker room story. I was one of the few guys Michael would talk to all the time. He didn't talk to anybody. I mean,
really?
And he didn't, and he would make things very uncomfortable, especially for young reporters who weren't used to it. He would ask them questions. He would make them very uncomfortable. He just got a kick out of it. But, people are like, well, what the hell is McMullen talking to Bennett about? The key is Michael would not talk about football. We talked about Netflix all the time. We talked about our Netflix queues. He would not talk about football. And at the very end, I would say, Mike, you got to give me something on the game. Give me something. And he would give me one stupid quip. But the whole time we'd be talking about our Netflix cubes. He's a big horror person guy.
Yeah.
Love The Purge. Love The Purge.
That might explain a lot with Michael Bennett and the direction that his career took. A couple other swings and misses Howie has had in free agency the last couple of years and/or trades. And the whole Deshaun Jackson trade. People forget that was actually a trade, not a free agent signing. It seemed like a free agent signing, but it was a trade. The return of Vinny Curry, who, by the way, he's on the Jets this year. Oh, God. If Vinny Curry all of a sudden, if the light bulb goes on and somehow Vinny Curry becomes a player, fell off with the Eagles, went to the Bucs, did nothing, comes back to the Eagles and makes it with the Jets. Yeah, I'm not chock full of hope here, but I am just from a Jet fan perspective. Malik Jackson, and again, you have to keep it in mind, but the dice gets rolled and you got to accept it. Injury. Do you think he's one of those guys who post-injury had no chance whatsoever? Do you think he's going to be able to do anything for the Browns this year?
I think he's soft. I think I put Benny, as a matter of fact, and Malik in the same category. I mean, Benny was fine. He's just a rotational player. Really, the fourth defense. I think he's going to be 33 this month, so he's getting up there. As long as you have him in that rotation, he's really effective. Same thing with Malik Jackson. That the Eagles probably needed him to play a little bit more than he probably should have, and I think Malik probably thinks he should be playing a little bit more than he should. But I think if he's your third guy in the rotation at defensive tackle, I think he's still a good player, Malik Jackson.
So you think he's actually going to help the Browns this year? Do you think it was an okay signing for them?
Yeah, I think it was a solid. That's a very good team. I got to look at what they have at defensive tackle. Obviously, they're very good at defensive end. If they're going to expect him to play 70-80% of the snaps, I think things start to, you have diminishing returns, but I think if he's out there 30-40% of the snaps, I think he's a really good complementary player.
One of the things Jimmy Kempski wrote in his Eagles are a dumpster fire column that's on phillyboys.com today about the receiving core. And I wanted to talk about the receiving core before I saw Jimmy's article. His headline for the receiving core. Still, the Eagle receiving core still aren't good.
Yeah, they're not. They're not good. They're not
How
good.
high can Devonta Adams, all by his loan, as a rookie, raise this? Because no one will argue.
Well, Devontae Adams could raise it vastly.
Did I say Adams again?
Devontae Smith is going to raise it significantly, but not as much as Devontae Adams. Maybe 2-3 years down the road. I think Devontae's going to be fine. I think, the receiver position has been so bad for so long now. People are going to see Devontae Smith and go, wow, okay, that's what a receiver looks like. I should put one caveat. Every time Deshaun was out there, which was, one game a year, he was still good, Deshaun Jackson, but couldn't get on the field. Alshon Jeffrey couldn't get on the field. Then he had the big injury, just wasn't the same physically. So they've had some good receivers. But the last 2 years, because those guys haven't been able to get on the field, I mean, in the modern era of the NFL, Jody, it's happened 3 times. It's happened twice to the Eagles, and back-to-back seasons. No receiver over 600 yards. It's atrocious. It's unbelievable. It's nothing to get to 600 yards receiving in the modern NFL, and they couldn't find a receiver to do it. They couldn't find a receiver. Now, Travis Fulgham probably would have done it if they kept him on the field, but it's really unbelievable.
And what makes it even more painful this past year than the previous year, at least in the previous year, they had 2 tight ends.
Yeah.
Because when you make that stat, you're talking about purely wide receivers, not receivers, wide receivers. At least you had Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, both catching a whole lot of balls and putting up a whole lot of yards. This past season, Zach Ertz was not nearly as good a player as he had been in previous years, and Dallas Goedert was hurt for a chunk of the season as well. So you didn't have as many 12 formations as you had in 2019, in 2020, and the Eagles wide receivers still came up with less than 600 yards.
Yeah.
You almost have to work to be that bad.
Even that, Jody, if you think about it from this perspective, if you have the best tight end in football, Travis Kelce, George Kittle, whoever, okay, 1,500 yards, record. Your average quarterback in the NFL in the modern era is going to throw for 4,000. Bad quarterback throws for 35 if he's out there for 16. Now it'll be 17 games. Just do the math. Somebody's got to get those yards. It's usually a receiver. It's always a receiver with over 600. It's only happened 3 times, and it's happened back-to-back years for the Eagles. It's beyond. It's Ben Simmons at the free throw line. That's what that statistic is. It's so abhorrent, you can't even wrap your head around it.
Then Devonta Smith. That's Mr. Smith comes to Philadelphia. Better get at least 600 yards.
He's getting 600 in his sleep.
Yeah,
if he's healthy, we always get.
I'm banking on over 900 yards, probably over 1,000, but he better get at least the 600. So John McMullen and I can't make fun of the Eagle wide receivers as a group as we have these last couple of years. All right, we'll get a timeout in here. Hoping to be joined by Clark Judge, NFL columnist for decades. Doing it these days for Talk of Fame Network, and a Hall of Fame voter is going to hop on with us, talk NFL and Hall of Fame, right here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
A Football Friday edition here on Birds 365. Sometimes it's a casual Friday. I don't know about you, Johnny Mac. You look like you're in a T-shirt. Is that a T-shirt you got going?
I got the collar, Jody.
Oh, okay. I don't.
I at least got the collar.
I went purely T-shirt today because my daughter was good enough to buy this for me for Father's Day. So it's a casual Friday. Let's see. Our next guest looks quasi-casual. He's rocking a good hat with us.
He's got the Canadians hat. There we go.
Oh,
Montreal.
I didn't make that out. Is that a C?
Yeah,
Is that a Canadian? Oh, there he goes. Very good.
Stanley Cup Finals for the first time in how long, Clark Judge? How long has it been?
1993.
Wow.
Damn.
Even longer than I imagined. I think it's good when a team like Montreal gets in the Stanley Cup Finals. I think it's good when Boston, the Celtics are in the but people probably don't like that. But it's been a long time since.
Been a long time. I think it's great for Canada. I love seeing Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup Finals. It hasn't been that frequent, but the last time a team from Canada won a Stanley Cup was 1993 with Montreal. But yeah, Montreal. But this isn't a great team. It's not really a really good team, but right now they are because they're playing confidently. They're playing with all sorts of momentum, and they've got a very, very hot goalie. So it's a complete team effort. They don't have great goal scorers. They've just got a lot of people who are taking advantage of the opportunity. It's a lot of fun to watch them. A lot of fun.
Yeah, Carey Price has been on fire here in this postseason after they fell behind 3-1 to Toronto. All of a sudden, it was like he and the team flipped the switch, and they've been dynamite ever since. I've always thought of you as a New York guy. How'd you become a Canadiens fan there, buddy?
Always followed them. My dad was in the service, so we moved all over the country. I mean, I go way back to the 60s, and I started following hockey with the Red Wings with Roger Crozier, Gordie Howe, those guys, Ted Lindsay, Del Vecchio. I loved watching them. But then when I watched Montreal, they played with such speed and finesse that I loved their game. And of course, then they started winning. Well, not started, they were winning a lot. So that was appealing. But I loved watching them play. And I've become a lifelong and long-suffering Canadiens fan. And this is just so great to see. I don't know if you guys watched that game last night, but outside the Bell Centre last night, the fans are going crazy. I mean, there were thousands watching. Just great for Montreal. It's great for Canada. And I think it's great for the NHL.
I mean, the Flyers haven't won for a long time here in Philadelphia, but I remember, going back to the days of Ken Dryden. I mean, those Canadian teams, those were just phenomenal. And I remember the Flyers. So I just remember Flyers fans would get really, really upset because Ken Dryden was that good. And there was nothing they could do.
He was that good. Yeah, that's right. I mean, I tell stories all the time about the Summit Series when Ken Dryden was the goalie there. He was spectacular. It was a different game. I mean, there were stand-up goalies. Guys weren't getting in front of the net like they are today. I don't see how goalies play the way they do today with all the interference that's going on in front of them. And yet they're all remarkable. I mean, Leonard played really well last night and got beaten on a shot that he couldn't have stopped. But I think it's a remarkable game. I love watching it. Dryden was spectacular. My favorite player was Cornwall. Loved watching the Roadrunner because he could fly. And I love teams that are fast. And Montreal is a fast team. And they've built the club the way I think playoff teams should be built from the back end up. Good goalie. They've got 4 really good and big defensemen. And they've got momentum right now. So they're playing well.
Yeah, and as fast as Cornwall, he wasn't the Rocket. There was only one player that they named the Rocket, so I'm sorry. Mr. Richard was the fastest guy out there on the ice. But we digress. We didn't get John to talk hockey, but we do love the hat, and we give you credit for it. And good luck in the upcoming Stanley Cup Final. Now, we wanted to talk football with you, and we appreciate you coming on board. I read an interesting thing on Pro Football Talk today. Someone finally noticed and brought it out that Aaron Rodgers could opt out this year. Now, he would give up his salary if he chooses to do so, because we are still in the midst of a pandemic, even though we may be beating it back, it is still certainly something that we deal with on a day in, day out basis. And if you haven't been vaccinated in the NFL, all other sports, you certainly are dealing with it with the restrictions you're under. But it is also given the players an option that if they want to opt out this season, they can. And while they won't be paid their salary, they will not have certain ramifications held against them, like skipping preseason games, like giving back roster bonuses for being on the team, that Aaron Rodgers could just choose to opt out, and it wouldn't be as punitive as if he held out. Do you think that's really an option for the Green Bay Packers starting quarterback?
I think everything is an option for Aaron Rodgers. I really do, because if you know him, and I don't know him well, I certainly have dealt with him. He is what Mark Murphy said, very complicated guy, very smart guy, honestly, a somewhat arrogant guy, but that's what you want in a leader for a football team, and he's the leader of that team. But he's tough to figure at times, and when he puts his foot down and believes very strongly about some things, he follows through, and he doesn't care what anyone else says. I have said for a long time, listening to what he's saying, or not listening to what others are saying, and some of it, which I think comes from him, but listening to what's going on and the fact he didn't show up at minicamp, I don't think he's going to show up at training camp. I do think he's resolved not to play for that team again. Now, I know others that say, no, that's not the case. I mean, look, he signed up for the Green Bay Country Club again. I don't care. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is a strongly independent individual. He does what Aaron Rodgers wants to do. And I think he's really set his foot in cement on this thing and said, okay, let's see who blinks first. And it does remind me, and John, you'd remember this, and it reminds me somewhat of 2012, 2011 with Carson Palmer. And then it was 2012, I think. But with Cincinnati, Carson Palmer said, I'm not playing with you again. I'm not going back to Cincinnati. And Mike Brown said, no, you are. We're not trading you. We are not trading you. And I'll retire first. No, you're staying with this team. And then what happened was Marvin Lewis goes out there, and Marvin Lewis comes back and says, he's going to retire. And I had a friend who was a next door neighbor told me the same thing. He's retiring. He's not going to play for Cincinnati again. So the Bengals upped and drafted Andy Dalton in the second round. Lo and behold, they were 6-2 in midseason. And Mike Brown, the guy who said, I will never trade him, traded him to the Oakland Raiders. So maybe that happens here, but I think it's somewhat similar because it reminds people of the Brett Favre situation. It reminds me more of that Carson Palmer situation because Carson Palmer is defiant. And Aaron Rodgers, honestly, is defiant here too. And I do think he's just waiting to see who moves first.
Now, Clark, the problem with the opt-out scenario is he would have to make a decision really, really quickly, July 2nd. So essentially next week. So that kind of limits your strategy to try to use that. The Carson, I've used that myself. I agree with you. The Carson Palmer situation, but he'd have to get back, I think, $23 million if he retired. So,
but he's got a lot of money, John. He's got a lot of money.
He doesn't need the money, but I've yet to meet the person that wants to cut the $23 million check going the other way. Maybe it is such an interesting scenario. But I want to talk about it, Clark, from the perspective of if it does happen, and say it's Denver, how drastic is the shift in the NFL landscape as far as Green Bay being a contender to Denver becoming a contender?
That's exactly what would happen. I mean, Green Bay, you'd probably put at the bottom of the division, or well, Detroit's there, so maybe down there with Detroit, but no longer is Green Bay a playoff factor. That's how big a difference he makes. And suddenly Denver, which hasn't had a credible quarterback really since Peyton Manning was there, suddenly does become a factor in an AFC West, which now, if that were to happen, would be very top heavy. You have Kansas City. I do think the Chargers are going to be good this year. I think they're going to be better, much better. And you've got Denver. And we saw what happened when Peyton Manning went there. He completely revitalized that team. I think the same thing would happen here. And you'd suddenly have to include the Denver Broncos. If this were to happen, again, that's a big if this were to happen, as a playoff favorite and as a division threat to Kansas City and maybe, just maybe, the Chargers.
I put this question to Clark, but Johnny Mack, if you want to give me your insight on this too, please do so. They're thinking about moving the combine. They didn't have it this past year because of COVID related issues. They will have it in 2021 back in Indianapolis. But after decades of being there, they're thinking about moving it elsewhere. Why? to make it more of a moneymaker. What else is new? The NFL trying to monetize everything. They're very good at that. Should they really do that? You guys worked it. I never went to the combine. I watch it on TV like everybody else. I've been to Indianapolis, great town. You can stay indoors. You don't even have to go. It's all connected by tunnels. So I know how it works. And that's a beautiful domed stadium. Do they have to move it? Do they need to wring out every single last dollar possible? Is this a foolish conversation the NFL is having, Clark?
I don't think it's a foolish conversation. If you talk to the owners are always interested in making more money. What did John just say about Aaron Rodgers? I mean, would you leave $23 million on the side? They look at this as a money-making proposal. Always have, because I started covering that thing back in the early 90s when there were literally about 6 or 7 reporters there. And nobody's making any money. Nobody is. And then you fast forward to today, and I haven't been there in a few years, but John, I think it's something like 1,000 people there right now, and they charge admission for attending the combine. When the thing is, you're watching people run in shorts. You're watching some guys run in shorts, 40-yard wind sprints. I mean, that's what you're going to watch, but people pay for that, and they've monetized the media day at Super Bowls too. So is that what you should be doing? No, maybe it's not, but that's a romantic, and as someone who's old school, and people say the NFL, get with it. We're trying to make as much money as possible. So how are we going to do this? I fully expect it's going to go to North Dallas, to be honest with you, because Jerry Jones knows how to make money.
Jerry built that place.
That's right.
With the combine in mind. He's got a hotel there. He's got the indoor facility, that boxing match. He built that place because there's no more powerful owner. Jerry knew what was coming to get the combine. In Los Angeles, they're doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Minnesota has a brand new facility that can hold it. There's a couple others, Clark, but yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I want the draft to be in Radio City Music Hall, and I want the combine to be in Indianapolis, but life moves on. And I also want to add in the NFL Network is now talking about bringing on partners,
media,
because all this league wants to do is monetize.
That's right. And you know, John, there are people within that office that I've known for years. In fact, my wife's one of them. She used to work there for 24 years, and they look back and say, it used to be this way. It used to be this way. And I'll go, it's not that way anymore. I know people there say it used to be about football. And then it became about making money. And that's what it's all about today. And it's just like you said, people say, get with the program. We're monetizing everything. And I'm glad you mentioned the draft. That's exactly Exhibit A. The draft was in New York for, years, Jody. I mean, Jody, forever. And I love going to Rady's venue. But they decided, hey, if we take this on the road, what do you think? You guys know. I mean, people.
Oh, tell me we're losing Clark too. That apparently you still there, Clark?
Yep, I am.
Okay.
We lost you for a second at the end, but the monetizing aspect, you mentioned the draft is on the road now. The combine was next. Los Angeles, they're kind of building up this whole, ecosystem with the NFL Network, and obviously it's going to be in the Super Bowl system. Super Bowl rotation. And then the betting aspect of it, Clark. That's really, Roger Goodell has said, I want this to be a $25 billion industry by the time I leave. He's going to get there. He's going to get there. Yep. And this is the way you get there.
Absolutely right. And I think what you saw, what Paul Tagliabue said a week ago or so about sports betting, I think that's a very slippery slope to get involved in, but all the sports leagues are doing it, and the NFL's leading the pack. And you're right. Again, it goes to making money. And who was involved right from the beginning? Jerry Jones and Robert Kraft. They signed off immediately on the DraftKings deal, and somebody else, whatever another betting site was. But that's what's driving the train. It's making money. And I do think, I remember years ago, a friend of mine said, you know why the NFL is so popular? It's a great game, but gambling. And they know that. And they finally woke up to it.
That's the only thing that bothers me. They were so anti-gambling for so long, and now there's money to be made. Oh, let's throw our arms around gambling, which is hypocritical. But hey, you got to do what you got to do, and they are the best at monetizing things and making money. All right, let's take it back out onto the field. Since we talked about a whole bunch of things off the field, Clark. This is Birds 365, and we talk more Eagles than anything else. You got a peek at Jalen Hurts last year. I'd like to get people on who aren't involved on a day in, day out basis and overanalyzing every single snap and every aspect of it. Someone from outside looking in, did you see enough from Jalen Hurts to make you say, all right, yeah, this guy's worth taking a shot at? Not a guarantee. You're only committed as a second-round draft pick. They have accumulated this draft capital that they have going forward. So if they want or need to go in another direction next year, they can. But are they in a good enough position this year with Jalen Hurts to give him a fair shake and go, yes, either this guy is our quarterback for the next several years or this guy isn't our quarterback starting immediately next season?
Yeah, I mean, going back to your original question, did you see enough? I saw enough to say, hey, I'm interested. I want to see more. Okay, that's about the extent of it. Now, do I think he's going to be the next Deshaun Watson, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes? No, I don't know. I mean, I think he's worth a look. He certainly gives you mobility. He can run with the ball. I'd like to see him a little more accurate as a passer. But the fact of the matter is what we saw was good, partly because what we saw before with Carson Wentz last year, I'm talking about last year, was so bad. And I'm not faulting Carson Wentz. I know there were a zillion issues going on. However, it was a wake-up call for any Eagles fan that, holy cow, now suddenly we've got a pulse on offense. We can move the ball up and down the field. And I thought that was at least worth looking more at. So this year, do you find out? Yeah, we hope you'd find out something this year because I think there was enough there to explore.
Hey, Clark, I want to talk about your latest podcast. I see you had Dan Pompei on. And that's Eye Test for 2 for those who want to check it out. And it's about a lot about the Bears and Justin Fields and their plan moving forward, which they kind of said Andy Dalton's going to be the starter. It's not a competition early on. But look, Matt Nagy's coaching for his job. Ryan Pace is GMing for his job, whatever you want to call that. How patient can you be in the modern NFL when you have a big-time quarterback, first-round pick? Yeah, it's not top 5, but they traded up to get him. He's almost, top 10. How much pressure is there to put those guys on the field quickly?
A ton, to me, a ton. Because just like you said, the head coach is under fire. Even though they went to the playoffs last year, they were 8-8, right? The GM should be under fire. Actually, I'm surprised Ryan Pace is still there. He missed with Mitch Trubisky, and that's a costly mistake with the second pick of the draft. Then you missed with Nick Foles, bringing him in there. Now you're telling us that, okay, this is the future quarterback, Justin Fields, all right? Fans believe that because they don't want to hear about Andy Dalton. And if I were a fan, I wouldn't want to hear about Andy Dalton either. But this is all you need to know about patience, John. And again, I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I'm preaching to the choir. 2017, remember that with Houston? Tom Savage was going to be the quarterback. We drafted Deshaun Watson to sit on the bench and learn. We're going to learn with Deshaun Watson. When he's ready, he will play. But Tom Savage is our quarterback. That plan lasted for one half of the season opener. That was it. So that's how much pressure there is.
Well, I'll give the Eagles this much credit. They were ahead of the curve. They tried to tell us Sam Bradford was going to be the quarterback when they took Carson Wentz with the second pick of the draft. Oops. Can we get a first-round draft pick for Sam Bradford? Sam, good knowing you. Carson, guess what? You're jumping in as a starting quarterback. So we know exactly the point you're trying to make. One of the things I did want to get you on, because John and I discussed this earlier this week about Hall of Fame. One of your compatriots, our buddy Paul Domowitch from Philadelphia, is not going to be writing going forward for the Daily News, but he's been in that room with you the last several years, Hall of Fame voting and the like. When do you lose or when do you give up your Hall of Fame voting status? We don't know the procedure. First of all, how do you get it? And then if you step away from your main writing gig, are you asked to give it up?
Yeah, good questions. How do you get it? You have to have covered a football team as a beat reporter. There are 32 teams, so there are 32 individuals from the cities where those teams are. So let's just say John was the beat reporter for the Eagles for a few years. The Hall of Fame then taps you to say, John, we would like you to be the Eagles representative in that room. Okay, so if there's ever an Eagles player who comes up for question, you're the guy that would present him. So that's how you do it. You have to have some history as a beat reporter, and then you're chosen by the Pro Football Hall of Fame. How do you get off? You really don't unless you want to voluntarily leave or you're told to leave. And for instance, Paul, who's an invaluable member of that group, and I mean that if you're in that room, I'm sure you guys certainly know him. He's terrific. But he's now moved on to, I think, write books, and I think he's going to do some other ventures outside. But he will stay on there because he's got a history of covering that team. He's an at-large guy, I think. I mean, no, maybe he's the Philadelphia guy.
He's the Philly guy.
Yeah, he's a Philly guy. But there are, in addition to those 32, there are 16 at-large members. I'm one of them. So I've covered numbers of teams, but they put me in as an at-large guy. We've got Dan Fouts, James Lofton as Hall of Famers who are at-large people. There's 16 people who are at-large tapped by the Hall of Fame. But you're on there as long as the Pro Football Hall of Fame is comfortable with you. And I'll give you an example. Vito Stellino, who covered the Steelers with Pittsburgh, then Washington and Jacksonville, he stopped covering the Jaguars, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, but was still involved sort of peripherally in that. He's got his own website, vitostellino.com. He was on there until this past year, and then he stepped down. Ira Miller, whom I covered the 49ers with in San Francisco, had done some internet work after leaving the Chronicle, but he stepped down last year as well. So you're on there really until the Pro Football Hall of Fame just says, I think we need to go in another direction. Or you say, I've had enough.
Clark, I want to talk to you about the 2021 class. So for those who don't know, it's probably headlined by Peyton Manning, Calvin Johnson, as well, Alan Banneker, John Lynch, who am I missing? Drew Pearson, Charles Woodson, I think is going in.
Calvin Johnson, Megatron.
Yeah, Calvin. Calvin's the interesting one for me because obviously he's a Hall of Fame player, but a little bit of a shortened career by his own accord. How do you guys weigh that? That is one. Terrell Davis, I would put in that category as well. There have been so many great players who maybe, one of the guys that I think should be in the Hall of Fame, but the shelf life was very short, was Chuck Foreman in Minnesota. When you talk about short shelf lives, longevity, how do you kind of weigh that?
It's a good question. I believe very strongly longevity is one of the key factors in weighing the candidacies of Hall of Famers. But the Terrell Davis situation, and frankly, Kenny Easley was in the same class. He had an abbreviated career, but they changed the landscape because Terrell Davis, if you look at his career, essentially had 3 really good years, stellar years, at 4 good years, but 3.5 stellar years. And then he was gone, and he was gone because of a career-ending injury. And in my mind, I thought that was too short. Now, the presentation by Jeff Legwold of Denver was convincing because if you look at his postseason stats, you look at what he did while he was in there, he was a generational talent. But that was only for 3 or 4 years. And I can make the argument, you guys can look up these people. You take a guy like Art Powell. He had 3 great seasons, 3 stellar seasons. Warren Wells had some issues, big issues off the field. 3 stellar seasons. Why aren't they suddenly candidates? And now you've really sort of lowered the bar. I'm not trying to say that Terrell Davis shouldn't be in. There's an argument to be made, but the argument is this, and that's what longevity. But what it's done now is open the door for everyone else, and that's one of the reasons you see Tony Baselli now is a top 10 finalist. Tony Baselli, people used to say the career is not long enough. And now I say, yeah, it is. And while he was there, he was as good at his position as Terrell Davis was at his. But we don't have that measuring stick for tackles that we do for running backs. Yards per carry, yards per catch, all that stuff, 2,000-yard seasons. But I think you'll see Baselli get in this year. I will tell you this. I don't think he would make it if Kenny Easley and Terrell Davis hadn't happened. But now that they have, it's changed everything so that longevity should not be an issue. Now, I tell you that, guys, even though in that room, when we talk about Baselli, it still continues to come up. And my point is, it shouldn't. It can't anymore. It can't. But we'll find out this year, because this, to me, is the year Baselli's got to make. This year is wide open, the Hall of Fame. I'm talking about 2022.
You can tell by Clark's impassioned stance there. He's a precedent guy. He believes in precedent. Once you set the precedent, then you have to act on the precedent, which is a perfectly fine way of handling it. All right, I'm going to ask you to tell a personal Hall of Fame story, and I'll set it up for you. You do your prep work coming in. You know who the finalists are. You do all your studying. You do your pre-work before you get in the room, and then you get in the room. I'm sure you got computer access in case you got to look something up. Who gave the best speech that you were leaning towards? Yeah, no, on the bubble, not really for me, probably gonna vote no, but someone got up there and gave an impassioned plea and or quoted something, a stat or a stance or a happenstance or a circumstance that transpired during their time with that team. You said, damn, didn't know that. Man, I hadn't considered that. Holy mackerel. Maybe I should rethink my... Who gave the best impassioned plea in the room with you there and actually swung your vote?
Okay, I'm not going to give you one. I'll give you two. But the best speech always is the one, for instance, Ira Miller, I suggested earlier was with the Chronicle, and he was when he presented Joe Montana. He stood up and said, Joe Montana, and sat down. That's the best speech. That's the best speech. And so nothing more. But there are two. One was Ira Kaufman, who I do this podcast with. John, thanks for mentioning that podcast. I test for two, but John, Ira was presenting Warren Sapp, and he stood up, and his introductory speech was so good. I won't tell you what was said because it's not actually for public listening, I think. Okay. But he said something that had the room in hysterics. And it got your attention because I said, I'm Warren Sapp. I'm not doing first ballot. I'm not doing it for numbers of reasons we don't need to go into. But he tipped the room, and it was a great speech. It was impassioned. Basically, his point was, listen, so he doesn't practice during the week. So he doesn't practice well maybe during the week. On Sundays, he's always there. And he gave us an example and gave us a reason why. But the one that comes to mind most, Jody, that you mentioned is somebody didn't swing my vote. It just reinforced my vote. Okay. Morton Anderson came up thinking, I'm off the top of my head, 2016, 17, I think it's 16. Yeah. But in any case, all-time leading scorer at that time, two-time all-decade choice, all right, place kicker. We know Atlanta, New Orleans, two-time all-decade choice. But he was a kicker. And at that time, we had one kicker, Jan Stener in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. We also had two specialists, Jan Stener and Ray Guy. And so suddenly, Morton Anderson is again a top 15 finalist, and you hear the room swing. These guys are only on the field 5 or 6 plays. I don't think we should be doing this. Blah blah blah. And it's going back and forth. And Dan Fouts said, I must be missing something here because we got the analytics guys and they were telling things. And Dan Fouts said, I must be missing something here. He was the best at his position for 20 years. And we're not going to put him in. I don't care what the percentages say. I don't care. He was the best at his position. Somebody then tried to contradict Dan, and Ron Borges from the Boston Herald at that time said, as only Ron can, in an impassioned way, let's just call it what it is, guys. We're not putting kickers or punters in. That's it. Let's just call it that. We're never going to put them in. And the guy who had brought the objection said, no, that's not what I'm saying. Ron said, that's exactly what you're saying. This guy's the all-time leading scorer. He was a two-time all-decade choice. He couldn't be any better in his position. And we're just saying, nah, he's not good enough. Why? Because he's a kicker. So let's just make it a rule now. Kickers and punters, you don't need to apply. And that was it. There was no more discussion. He goes through and he gets in the Hall of Fame as he should have.
Yeah, that's so interesting, Clark, because I'm always talking about recency bias. And you brought up the name Ray Guy. I mean, if you look at Ray Guy was so much better in his era than anybody else. But if you look at the numbers, there's a bunch of punters today that can, for whatever reason, better nutrition, strength, condition, whatever. How do you guys kind of force the other guys? I don't want to pick people out, but you got to look at guys with their peers as opposed to just numbers from an analytics standpoint, which might explode because the game has changed or what have you, because of nutrition, all that kind of stuff.
Right. That's a very good question, John. And what it does is identify you, Jody, and me as old guys in the eyes of a lot of people. They go,
old
you guys,
school. We like old school. Old,
that's right.
Old school is cool.
Yeah. And they go, oh, you guys, you're looking back to the past, you're romanticizing it. And I go, I didn't romanticize Ray Guy. I saw him play. Did you see him
better
play?
Than everybody else.
Yeah.
And the younger the room gets, and I'm not trying to pick out particular individuals, but the younger the room gets, the more distance they are from persons like that. I mean, they don't know who Ray Guy was because they didn't see him play. They have a sheet in front of them that tells them what his punting average was, his net average was. And it's like you said, you go, well, look at it versus Shane Leckler. Well, they don't have a Shane Leckler award. They have a Ray Guy award for good reason. And in that room, I remember saying, hey, listen, he's the one of only 2 guys on the 75th anniversary team who's not in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Ray Guy. The other guy's Billy White Shoes Johnson. What are we missing here? All I know about Ray Guy is he's so good that they named the best punter, the award for the best punter in college football after him. It's the Ray Guy Award. At which point someone said, yeah, well, the best offensive lineman was Dave Remington, right? That's why they named the award the Dave Remington Award. I don't think he's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. To which point I said, tell me where Dave Remington is on the 75th anniversary team. He's not there. All right. What are we missing here? So Ray Guy should have gone in a long time ago. But there is a fight, not a fight so much, but there is a struggle within that room of stats, analytics, whatever you want to call it, versus, quite honestly, the eye test. And when people say, I saw Ray Guy, if you saw Ray Guy play, you knew he was a generational talent. Same thing. If you saw Gale Sayers, there's a guy with an abbreviated career. If you saw Gale Sayers, he made an impression, and you knew what you were looking at. And I don't think I have to tell you guys. I mean, listen, I go back, and I honestly don't know how old you guys are, but I think you're probably somewhat the same vintage as I. I remember watching Unitas play. I did, and I thought I'd never seen anything like him. And yet, if you want to take the analytics or stats or whatever, passer rating, I think the last time I checked, which was like a year ago, he was something like 77th. And so you could look at that and go, why would you put this guy in?
Clark, real quick. I remember 92.3 for a reason, because that was Joe Montana's passer rating when he retired. Yep. Now, if you're 92.3 the NFL, you're an average quarterback. You're an average quarterback.
John, the game's changed so much, which is difficult for younger people to understand. If they watched the game in the 70s and 80s, it was a vertical passing game. It wasn't a horizontal passing game. All I know about passing percentages is either one of you 2 guys were to run in front of me as the quarterback, and I toss you a 2-foot forward lateral. It's a forward pass, and it's a completion. I didn't see those guys, and I'm going back to Tarkin and Unitas, Montana. I'm going to go like, Elway Marino. They weren't doing that. And receivers weren't crossing the middle. They weren't, because you went across the middle at your own risk. I understand why all those precautions have been made. It's to protect players. But I just talked to Mark Clayton last week. He goes, there was nothing like a defenseless receiver in my day. Nothing like that. You go across the middle, you got tattooed. And I understand why the NFL is vigilant about that. I get it. But it's a different game. So you're right. When you start playing with numbers, you can do anything with them.
Clark, last thing, and this has been a great conversation. Thank you very much. Last year, you did the Hall of Fame voting virtually.
Yeah.
Like everything else. We all had to adjust to the pandemic time in which we were living. I'm hoping for you guys' sake that you're going to do it as you have day before Super Bowl at the site of the Super Bowl this year. Has that been locked in yet? Am I correct to assume that it hasn't been decided one way or the other?
You are correct, Jody. I don't know the answer to that. And my suspicion, again, this is a suspicion, is that we would do it virtually. That's not talking to anyone, nothing more than just intuition for this reason. A, it's easier to put 50 guys on a conference call. B, it's cheaper.
Cheaper, yeah.
And so that may be what happens. I hope not, because when you get in that room, there's a different dynamic, and you can feel a room shift. You can feel a room shift then. And I do think it's a good way of doing it. I know the criticisms involved, and I understand them, but there are a lot of positives to it as well. And I think when you face a voter face to face, and you're able to ask questions, and like I mentioned, that Ron Borges conversation, when you're able to do something like that, you can swing a room.
I didn't even get to ask my question. You answered it without me asking you. It sounds like you would prefer to do it in a room with a group I hope that's the way it plays out for you. I fear you could be right that it will be done virtually for cost purposes. The NFL, something the NFL can't monetize, the Hall of Fame vote. But dollars and cents do factor in. I hope they factor for you being able to get back in the room. We appreciate greatly, virtually as it is, that you joined us here today. You gave us some great stuff, Clark. Thanks much.
I appreciate it, guys. Remember, go Habs. Go Habs.
By the next time we have you back on, we'll know whether the Canadians are or aren't the Stanley Cup champions. That's Clark Judge here with us on Birds 365. All right, last time out, come back. Put a ball in the show next here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Mac guys, wrapping up a Football Friday get together here on Birds 365. Thank Clark Judge for coming on board. I thought to reach out to him and get him on this week because you and I had discussed the Hall of Fame. Our buddy Paul Domowitch, who we will attempt to get next week here on the show, is stepping away from his day in, day out duties with the Daily News. But we'll have to ask Domo whether he's planning on continuing to be a Hall of Fame voter and represent Philly. Shoot, if he does it for the next decade as a football fan, I wouldn't have a problem with it because I know Paul knows what he knows and will stay on top of things and would be an excellent guy to continue the tradition of a Philadelphia vote. So I thought Clark would be a good spot. Damn, I didn't know he was going to be as good as he was. he's great. I don't know if his Canadians are going to be able to beat either the Lightning or the Islanders, but we got off on a hockey tangent, but he was great. And we thank him for coming on.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd be mentioning Ken Dryden on the show, but here we go, Jeff. We always go down. I love the history stuff, as people probably know by now. So these segments are so much fun for me when we have like guys like Clark on and Damo as well. I hope the fans enjoy them. I do think it's important. And Ray Guy's the perfect example.
Yeah.
Man. People don't, if you look at those numbers on a paper, look at his peers. Look at his peers. Look at him versus his peers and how much better he was than, Clark brought up Shane Leckler. Great punter. There are a lot of punters in Shane Leckler. Nobody was in Ray Guy's range during Ray Guy's era.
And when I hear that from a guy like Clark Judge, just makes me feel better because I've been doing sports talk radio for 30 plus years. From the time I started, I was saying this guy should go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I know he's only a punter, but do you realize what this guy is? So I made the argument they got him in. It should be in. He's the greatest punter of all time in the history of the NFL. But we digress. All right, next week, we're going to get Damo up. Who else? We're going to try and get John McMullen, NFL scribe. Again, John will like him because he's been doing it forever. And, by the way, he does it for the Houston Chronicle. Maybe there'll be some new Deshaun Watson news. Don't know. Possibility, maybe not. And our buddy BLG, Brandon Lee Gouton, told me this week, couldn't do it on vacay. Be glad to come on next week. So we got a couple of good spots lined up for next week, right, John?
And Jimmy Kempski, we're running out of spots. Jimmy said he'd come on as well. So we'll see how things shake out. But we should have a good lineup, a good pre-July 4th lineup. It's creeping up, Jody. It's creeping up.
Well, as long as the temperature doesn't creep up, because then John's wife is going to turn the thermostat down to 65. Well, we'll let you go, Freeze. Freeze, a good weekend, brother. Good shows this week. Thanks much for doing it with me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.